Hello, and welcome to What a Scream, the podcast where I, your host, Oh Golly Miss Dolly, chats with a special guest every week about horror films. And in particular, we choose two horror films that embody a certain theme or subgenre that I have previously randomly chosen. So this week is all about Australian horror from down under. I've spent a little bit of time in Australia, and let me tell you, everything wants to kill you out there. Whether it's the snakes or the sharks or the spiders or even the birds. The birds are petrifying out there, from massive emus that look like frickin' dinosaurs, or just violent magpies and crows that want to peck your eyes out. So Australian horror has a certain type of feel about it that is just quintessentially Australian. It's very like grimy, I want to say, but like not in a bad way. It's like grimy as in it's just really real and hard hitting, and even supernatural ones still have this kind of typical Australian feel to it. And it's not over polished like, say, Hollywood productions would be. It's just really real life with real people that, you can definitely say, well, I know a few of those people, or, I could definitely see that happening. One of their biggest exports into the world of horror is the Babadook. Jennifer Kent's film is a massive hit. If you haven't seen it, you need to go see it. It's one of my favourite films, and I actually talked about the Babadook on a previous episode, Parenthood with Aisling Clarke. So this week, myself and my special guest are going to be talking about two particular Australian films. Both of these films I really, really like. The first one is a 2008 kind of half found footage, half documentary style, called Lake Mungo. It's a fantastic film directed by Joel Anderson. I think it's the only film he ever directed, and after Lake Mungo, he kind of just disappeared. And then the second film is a bit more famous because it is based off of a true crime, kind of based off of two true crime serial killers that were around in Australia, and that is Wolf Creek from 2005, directed by Greg McLean. So my guest for this week is the host of Who's There podcast. Her name is Alison. And as I said, they're a fellow podcaster all the way from America, and we have a great time chatting about Australia and the horror that it has birthed. I would like to introduce to the podcast, it is Alison from Who's There, the podcast. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It's a miserable day here in Ireland, as per usual. How is it in your neck of the woods?
I'm in New York City, and today it's actually really gorgeous out. It's still only about 1 p.m. here, so
Yeah.
it's great.
Oh, lovely. And how have you been doing with the craziness of the world?
Luckily in New York City, despite our reputation, we have been rule followers because we
Okay.
want to keep people safe. So people have been wearing masks, social distancing. It's not as bad as the news portrays. So when
Okay.
you hear that it's like the end of the world here and New York is dead, never coming back, don't believe it.
Okay.
New York is back already, so it's great.
Okay, that's great to hear.
Yeah. What about you?
We are very, very slowly coming out of a lockdown. We've been in lockdown for about a year. And we are only just allowed to like travel or go outside our own county. Shops aren't open yet. We can't even buy clothes, like nothing like that. It's absolute. The Irish government have just completely failed when it came
Uh,
to this. So, but hopefully now that everyone's getting their vaccines, we're on the home run.
yeah. Have
Um,
you gotten a vaccine yet?
no, so they're doing it by ages. So like
Mhm.
they've been really, really slow with it. So at the moment they're only doing like 50, between 50 and
Yeah.
60, but hopefully it will start speeding up a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
What about yourself?
Yeah. I was fully vaccinated as of April 19th. 15th or 17th,
Oh
something
wow,
like that.
okay.
So yeah,
Yeah.
they were doing it by ages here too.
Hmm.
They opened it up to everyone 30 and over late April, I
Okay.
think.
Yeah.
I ended up getting my vaccine because I walked into the pharmacy and I was like, "Do you have any extra?" And they're like, "Yeah, I guess. Just go sit over there."
Maybe that's what I should do. I should just like
Yeah, you
walk into
should.
the pharmacy and be like,
Yeah,
please hook it to my vein.
yeah,
So for anyone that doesn't know, would you like to give us a brief about who you are and what you do?
yeah, sure. So I am a human resources manager at a computer software tech startup. We are fully remote. It doesn't sound exciting, but it's fine. It's a great job. I love it. But I'm also a horror movie fan. I host a horror movie podcast called Who's There? It's where I just talk to horror movie fans about why they love the horror genre, which is something I got into over quarantine when a bunch of
Mhm.
friends and I were meeting over Zoom and just playing horror movie trivia. And then we were just
Yeah.
spending most of the time just talking about horror movies. So I love theater. I see a lot of shows when Broadway is open.
Mhm.
I have 2 cats, and yeah, I live in Manhattan, like I said before.
That's fun. So you're a bit like me. I started this podcast because I was literally going crazy in lockdown and I was like, I just need to talk to someone that isn't like my husband or my child.
Yeah.
So what is your history with horror? Or what was your first horror film you ever saw?
The first horror movie that I ever remember really sitting down to watch intentionally was Scream in 1997 when it came out on VHS. But apparently, I don't know, do you count Arachnophobia as horror?
I do, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
apparently my dad tells a story that when I was 5 or 6, I sat down on the couch to watch that with him and he was like squirming and queasy and I was like, "Oh, bugs."
Oh,
So
cute.
maybe that was my first one. I don't know. I
Yeah,
rewatched that last year and it was fun. I like John
yeah.
Goodman.
I've actually never seen it because I wouldn't be the biggest fan of like creature kind of fests,
Yeah.
But I'm like I've lived in Australia, so I'm not afraid of spiders. It was like what's that therapy that they use where they just like exposure therapy,
Yeah.
where they just loads of spiders. And by the end of me living in Australia, I was like, it's grand, it's fine.
Yeah, I have a couple friends in Australia and I'm like, I don't know how you do it there because everything's trying to kill you.
Yes. So do you feel that being a massive horror fan has kind of shaped you who you are today?
Um, oh God, I don't know because my taste in horror are like so specific and like
Okay.
I hate most of the horror movies that a lot of people like
Yeah.
Evil Dead and um I did have like the Saw franchise and Hostel on there
Yeah.
too. I rewatched Saw last night for the first time since
Okay.
seeing it in theaters in 2004. It wasn't as bad as I remembered, but um has it shaped me as a person? Maybe it has made me maybe more cynical or just
Yeah.
um it's prepared me more for like the bad stuff that could happen
Yeah.
because you're like I've been there, I know what to do.
Yeah. I think
So
that's why they've been saying that horror movie fans were the best equipped to deal
yeah.
with the past year. And I completely believe that because we've all seen the films and we're like,
Yes.
sure, we know what to do. It's grand.
Yeah. Yeah, we're like that, but we're like we get to stay home and there's no one trying to come into our homes and kill us.
Yeah.
We got this, and we have a
Yeah.
lot of movies,
Yeah.
so
It's fine.
yeah.
We've got the baseball bats and we've got, we know
Yeah.
exactly what to do, what not to do. So the theme for this episode was Australian horror. What is your experience with Australian horror?
I have no experience with Australian horror. I've seen the Babadook. I think that's my
Okay.
only, besides Lake Mungo.
Yeah.
That's the only Australian horror I'm familiar with.
Okay.
I love the Babadook.
Yeah.
I am someone who does not want children, and that movie just
Yeah.
reinforces it.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's a great movie, and yeah. So my experience is very limited with Australian horror.
Okay. Yeah, I really love the Babadook as well. It's one of my favorite horror films just because of the themes. And
Yeah.
yeah, for anyone that kind of thinks maybe I want children, I think you should watch that film first.
Yeah.
And then figure it
Yeah.
out from there.
I
Yeah.
watched it. I watched it in April with a bunch of friends who also don't have children, or I
Yeah.
don't think they really want children, and we were like, we made a good choice.
Yeah. So with Australian horror, they kind of have like this kind of theme that runs through them is a lot of it is set kind of in nature or in the outback or in kind of like rural settings. Why do you think that is?
Because the country is so big, and I think from what I've read about it, it's mostly outback,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of nature. So, and that nature, like we said, has things in it that will kill you.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, like everyone thinks it's the sharks or the crocodiles you have to watch out for,
yeah,
and it's not. It's like the birds. Like
yeah.
while I was there, there was this news report about a little boy that had his eyes pecked out by magpies.
Oh,
Yeah, and I
oh,
was like, oh dear. Oh,
oh
I've been
no.
I've been scared to go in the water. Now I'm just scared to go outside.
Yeah, yeah. I really do want to go to Australia someday, but I want to go to like Sydney and Melbourne.
Yeah,
So,
stick to the cities, the urban.
yes.
Yes.
I'm not a fan of nature, so
No, I'm all right with it. I'm all right with bugs, and that kind of thing. But Jesus, everything in Australia wants to kill you.
yeah.
But Australian horror seems to have a certain grunginess to it, which I really appreciate.
Yes.
It's very
Definitely.
raw. Yeah. So will we start off with your pick then for Australian horror? Would you like to introduce it?
Sure. So I chose to watch Lake Mungo because I read it was a found footage movie.
Mhm.
And I love found footage. I can I read the plot off Wikipedia?
Yeah, of course you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this says 16-year-old Alice Palmer drowns while swimming with her family at a dam in Ararat, Australia.
Mhm.
Her teenage brother Matthew sets up a video camera around the house to record what seems to be images of Alice. They consult psychic Ray Kemeny for his insight and apparent haunting, but he's unable to explain it. Yeah, so they find out, and then they go deeper and deeper into who she was as a person,
Mhm.
and they find out all this stuff about her. Um, yeah, so and there are a couple of plot twists, and I liked it. It was really grungy and dingy. So
Yeah. It's yeah, the style it's shot in, obviously it's found footage and it's also documentary style.
yeah.
So it's got a lot of actor interviewees. How did you feel about that? Do you think it added to the film at all?
Um, I thought some of it added to the film. I
Hmm.
think they did a few too many cuts that was one like the dad saying something and then it would
Hmm.
cut to the brothers like confirming that or
Hmm.
saying something very similar. Um,
Yeah.
I thought, but I love documentary found footage
Hmm.
movies, so I was
Yeah.
happy with it.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed it because a lot of the actors were unknown actors, and then even the
Yes.
director Joel Anderson, he just disappeared after this film, so it kind of adds to the mystery of it a
Ooh,
bit.
that's super creepy.
Yeah, he just like fell off the face of the earth. No one, he didn't do another film ever again.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, no, the actors in this, they were great. So I had no
Yeah.
problem with that. Yeah.
So we see this family kind of coming to terms with the death of their daughter, and there's a lot of themes of grief and how each family member deals with it. How do you think they kind of dealt with the grief?
Well, I just have to say that when the mother is dealing with her grief and she says she's going and walking around at night and going into people's houses,
Yeah, that's so
I was
creepy.
like, does Australia not have therapists? To which my friend who I was with replied, no, they just got them last year. Um, but I was like, that is so fucked up. And later in the film, when they find the image of like their neighbor or the people that
Oh
she
my
was
God,
babysitting
yeah,
for in the corner of the room, I was like, that's what you get for going into strangers' homes in the middle of the
yeah,
night. Something is going to happen to you. And also, does no one lock their doors?
right?
Come on.
That's what I was thinking, because in Australia they have two doors. They have a screen door that, is kind of mesh, so you can open it in the summertime
Yeah.
and insects won't come in. And then you've got the actual door, but they lock both doors at night. And I'm like, how are you not locking both doors? Like,
Yeah.
lock
Uh,
your doors.
yeah. I have 3 locks on my door and
Yeah.
I lived in an apartment building. So my door doesn't even face the street. But if my door faced the street anywhere, I would like deadbolt it and
Yeah.
I would have like,
Yeah.
yeah, alarms. I
Yeah.
don't know. That's so weird.
It really is. I mean, you're asking for trouble. So yeah, we see the father, he kind of becomes a bit of a workaholic,
Yes.
throws himself into work. The mother, as you said, is breaking into neighbors' homes. And then the brother kind of throws himself into photography. And we find out throughout the film, there's all these like like um the daughter's presence is seen on film, and then we find out it was actually the brother who was doctoring them, and that throws us through a kind of like a wrong turn, a wrong direction. How did you feel about the twists and the turns? And it was like being thrown all over the place.
I felt like I felt like I didn't know how they were going to continue the movie
Hmm.
after it was revealed that the brother was doing all of this. And also,
Yeah.
I will just say that the brother Matthew with only one H or one T, he did not seem to get in any trouble when his
Yeah.
parents realized. And that, how could you not be mad at your son and like he
Yeah.
just put you through so much? And
Yeah.
they were like, it's okay,
Oh
it's
well.
fine. But yeah, I wasn't sure where they were going to go after they revealed that.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I liked that they kept it going and found some other ways to be creepy.
Yeah, and it kind of represents the fact that the family didn't know what was going on. You know, this like absolute tragedy happened, and then every turn they take, it felt like they found out more and more about their daughter's life.
Yeah.
And it was almost like they were strangers. Like their
Yeah.
daughter was a complete stranger and they didn't know anything that was going on. And it was only through her death that they actually found out about her. She was seeing, a therapist. She was actually seeing Ray previously
Yeah.
because she was having really bad visions and nightmares of her dying, and trying to reach out to her mother, and her mother not listening to her. And then there's that whole thing with the neighbors that really creeped me out really badly.
Oh, yeah. And also, why did they not go after the neighbors? Like, wouldn't
Right?
you go after
Yeah.
like the people who were like abusing your daughter? Because
Yeah.
I looked up the age of consent in Australia and it's
Okay.
17 and
Yeah.
Alice was 16.
Yeah.
So I am probably on an FBI watch list now. But I was just really curious. It's not like being in Georgia in the United States where the age of consent is like 14 or something.
Okay. Wow.
But yeah, but like even if the neighbors would have gotten off really easily, like don't you still just want to like I don't know, get them
Yeah.
convicted of something to be like,
Yeah.
here's what you get for filming my daughter having sex
Yeah.
with you? I
Yeah.
don't know.
It was really messed up.
Yeah.
I think that was one of there's that point, and then there's another point, the jump scare. But that point where you find out about the neighbors, that really it really upset me quite a lot
Yeah.
because you just don't expect it.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, what kind of movie are we watching now?
You're like,
Is this To Kill a
fuck.
Predator?
Yeah. So how did you feel about the kind of relationship between the mother and Alice? Because that was kind of like the main relationship they focused on.
um, I felt like it wasn't what the mother thought it was
Mm.
because she realized that she didn't know all these things about her daughter. Um, yeah, I felt bad for the mother because she didn't know all these things. And I feel like that would maybe be the case if that happened with a lot of mothers and daughters,
Yeah.
because I feel like mothers just want to really feel like they know their children very
Yeah.
well, but often they really don't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And it's kind of like this thing that you never really know someone until they're dead, which is kind of a
yeah,
strange way to put it. But
yeah.
yeah. So the jump scare in the middle, or kind of towards the end, that scared the absolute crap out of me. And I'm not easily scared.
I am easily scared and I just didn't want to continue looking at that face. So I
Yeah.
kind of like shielded my eyes. I know it happened, but I didn't actually see it. But my
Yeah.
friend next to me, he's a lot braver. So
Yeah.
he saw it and he was like, damn. But I appreciated
Yeah.
that there was only like one jump scare.
Yeah. I mean, I
So
saw a lot of reviews saying it wasn't good because it was only one jump scare, but I kind of feel like if you're putting too many jump scares in a film, it kind of loses its soul a bit, you know.
yeah, it wasn't a Conjuring universe movie. So
And
this
it
is
was
not the Nun.
yeah. And it was very effective.
Yes.
So the whole thing is they find out that Alice had buried her cell phone in the middle of the desert, and when they went to look for it, they saw the footage of Alice's like doppelganger almost, but
Yeah.
how she looked when she was discovered dead.
Yes.
And just that face, it just stayed with me for the rest of the film. I was like so
Oh,
creeped out for the rest of the film.
yeah. It was really weird. But what I want to know is they never actually said what happened to her, or like why she died in the water, unless I
Yeah.
missed that.
Yeah.
I don't
All they say
like,
is that she drowned, but like I assume
but
she was a good swimmer.
yeah, and like her family was right there with her. So like I
Yeah.
don't like, did that doppelganger like pull her down underwater and keep her there? I don't know.
Yeah. What I kind of took with it was maybe like it was almost like a suicide because
Mm,
obviously she'd been having all these dreams and she was dealing with a lot of depression and guilt herself. And we saw this theme of kind of like the inevitability of death. So I kind of got that maybe she was just like, you know what, might as well,
oh,
yeah,
that's so
as
dark.
morbid as that sounds. So how did you feel about the kind of the theme of the inevitability, this, this feeling of dread?
Well, the movie was definitely a slow burn and felt
Mm.
dreadful the entire time. Um, I'm not someone, I don't really fear death that much. I don't
Hmm.
know why. It's really weird because most people do, and I think
Yeah,
that's normal per se.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I think it's something that almost every person can relate to because,
yeah,
we all die. We're all always dying.
yeah,
Um, yeah, so I think it's just a very universal theme that the movie touches on. So I think probably everyone, even if you don't like horror, you could watch
mm,
this and close your eyes during the jump scare.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely feel it as, someone who has gone through like depression and anxiety. It was something that really resonated with me. That there is always that heavy feeling of an inevitability of death and feeling like you're never going to get away from it. And it's this thing that kind of follows you around. And
Yeah.
it's like, as she said, she was like, I can't get through to my mother. I'm, standing in a room and my mother
Yeah.
can't see me. And that's very much like when you've got depression or anxiety, is that you do feel that your loved ones can't see you for
Yeah.
you. So that was something that really, really resonated with me.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. So we see the family kind of decide that they're going to move on and move away. And the ending shot, we see them standing outside the house.
Yeah.
And then as the credits come, we start seeing images of Alice in the background of the pictures
Yeah.
that we've previously been shown,
Yes.
but we haven't noticed that she is actually. How did you feel about the ending?
Oh, I loved the ending. I thought it was so super creepy. I loved looking
Yeah.
at the photos again and then having her picked out. I don't know
Yeah.
how we missed them the first time. I kind of want
Right?
to go back and
Yeah.
look at the photos again. I was glad they moved. I would have burned
Yeah.
that house down from like night one.
Yeah.
That's if I'm like, if the window's open and something blows over, I'm like getting my matches ready to burn my apartment to the
Yeah.
ground. So if there were ghosts in my apartment, I would be out.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't care if it's a loved one, I'm out there. Like, I'm
yeah.
gone.
But I'm not sure how they knew some of the photos, the photo quality and the camera quality
Yeah.
in this movie were terrible. And
Yeah.
it came, I don't, did they not have good cameras in Australia in 2006? Because it was, this came out the year before the first Paranormal Activity, which is, the
Yeah.
quality is so much better. My friend was like, oh, I have to keep reminding myself that this is not a movie set in 1970. Yeah, oh, it was so grainy. I don't know how they could tell it was
Yeah.
her. It looked just like a woman with like a nondescript white face with long
Yeah.
brown hair. Like it could have
Yeah.
been anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I always say that like when people ask about Australia, I'm always like Australia is like 20 years behind
Okay.
everything else. So that explains the camera
Yeah.
quality. But yeah, it is actually really hard to decipher, and it's almost as if when people go through grief and they are trying to reach out for anything that could be a sign of the afterlife,
Mhm.
or if a butterfly lands, and not that I'm trying to take away from anybody, but if a butterfly lands on their window, they're like, that's my grandmother, or it's like these reaching, and that's what I kind of felt with them, that it was almost reaching. Like there were a few shots where they were like, look, she's in the mirror, and I was like, no,
Yeah.
don't see it.
I was like, that's a blur. That's
Yeah.
just some lines.
So that's what I kind of feel that was as well.
Yeah. Like they were just grasping for anything to
Yeah.
like, get some closure. So
Yeah. And and I kind of feel like the ending was almost like this thing of like, I know it was meant to be creepy, but it was almost comfort as well, that like loved ones are never really gone, that their spirits are always there. Not spirits as in woo ghosts, but like
Yeah.
spirits that we find,
Hmm.
if you know what I mean.
Yep.
So I really liked the ending for that as well.
Yeah. I'm curious as to whether or not Alice is going to stay in the old house or if she's going
Yeah.
to follow them. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's like Insidious. The house
Yeah.
isn't haunted. It's the family.
We need a Lake Mungo too.
Yeah.
So would you recommend Lake Mungo to horror fans?
I would. I think. I mean, go in knowing that it's a slow burn, but it is
Yeah.
really, really creepy and it
Yeah.
builds. And I was actually just listening to a podcast called The Poundcast.
Okay.
And I was listening to an interview with the producer of the Shutter film host, Jed Shepard.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they asked him, they were like, so what do you think is one of like the scariest movies you've ever seen? And he said, like, Mungo. He was like, because you never see really like the monster or anything or the person. And he's like, you're just talking to the family and it builds and it's so creepy. So I did
Yeah.
not expect him to say that at all. But
Yeah.
but I think he's right that
Yeah.
that
Absolutely.
it is very creepy and it will
Yeah.
creep you out. So
Yeah.
and there's no introduction, like you kind of
Yeah.
just go right into the movie. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, we're starting now. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It has a little bit of everything. You know, it has the slow burn psychological, it has the jump scare. It has the really disturbing scenes, especially when they show her body after being dragged from the lake. Like that really disturbed me as well. I think it's a great film. I think it's one of the great, found footage kind of films as well. It does it really well. You know, a lot of found footage films are kind of like, but why? Why are they still filming? Whereas this actually, you know, it just works really, really well.
Yeah, it does. And it's almost more like a spooky family mystery drama than a horror movie.
Yeah.
But I have to say that also the family seems really calm with everything that's happening. They never freak out. And I would have, like, night one, I would have been like, we have to get out of here.
Yeah.
I'm gone.
Even with the death, they seem quite calm about it, you know.
Yeah, they're like, well, you know, shit happens.
Oh well. So the film that I chose for this week was another quite famous Australian film. I'm sure everyone, even non-horror film fans, have heard of it. It is Wolf Creek. What do you know about Wolf Creek? Have you watched Wolf Creek before?
I have not. That is why I did not pick that movie, because I hear that it's very violent and I don't like a lot of gore. So
Okay.
I do not know a lot about it, but I have heard people say that it's really good.
Okay, you kind of noped out of it. You were like, no, not for me.
Nope.
I chose it because a lot of Australian horror is very fixated on animal horror. You know, like we've got Rogue.
Another reason. Yeah, I can't do that.
So it has like Rogue, which is the crocodile. We've got a lot of shark movies, and I'm not into that. I don't find them scary.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'll go with Wolf Creek because it kind of scares me a bit. So it's a 2005 Australian outback set horror, written and co-produced and directed by Greg McLean, starring John Jarratt as Mick, the serial killer. And it was based on the real life case of Ivan Milat, who was an infamous Australian serial killer who killed backpackers. And the basic premise is there's 3 backpackers, their car breaks down, Mick takes them back to his camp, and there they are drugged, and it's basically a chase movie, and he's going after them, and he does really horrible things to them. And yeah, like you said, there is a lot of gross moments that if you're squeamish, I wouldn't watch it. Like there's a bit where to stop a person getting away, he severs her spine so she can't get anywhere, you know, cuts her fingers off, really, really nasty stuff.
Gross.
A lot of the time with this though, the kind of tragedy of it is almost the victim's stupidity. Like a lot of times, like a lot of these movies, they have the chance to get away. but they
Yeah.
decide to go back, and you just think like, no.
Well, for the first stupid thing with this plot is that they go with a stranger to their house
Yes.
when they're
Yeah.
by themselves.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like, I know he's got that jolly old Australian kind of like, way kind of vibe going on, but you like don't trust weirdos from the outback.
Yeah, like just keep walking, go somewhere else. I don't
Yeah.
know. I go backpacking in Europe sometimes, and
Yeah.
I would never follow a stranger home. So
Absolutely not. I would rather like deal with my chances in the
yeah.
bush than I would with people. And that's really saying something, that people are more kind of dangerous than insects and sharks, although there are no
Yeah.
sharks in the outback, but you know, a rogue
Kangaroo.
kangaroo, yeah.
A koala could give you chlamydia. I don't know.
Exactly, exactly. Um, so would you consider this kind of film torture porn?
From what you've said, yes.
Okay.
If you're seeing someone get their spine severed and fingers
Yeah.
cut off, then yes. I think from what you say, it sounds really gory. So
Yeah. And how do you think, like, where do you think is the line for like torture porn and just a bit of gore, just a bit of like real gore?
when you're just showing like some blood and
Hmm.
maybe some of the kills, but the kills aren't over the top. They're not the saw traps.
Yeah.
And you're not just showing somebody cutting off somebody's limbs for fun.
Yeah.
Um, I and you're I there's also an aspect I think of showing the killer getting a lot of joy out of it. There's that
Mm.
psychological aspect
Yeah.
because yeah, I think a lot of the torture porn movies are a little bit psychological as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
At least they fuck me up. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think with this one, it's kind of weird because obviously I wrote a question down. I was like, does this film and others like it glorify the serial killers? Um, what do you think about that question?
Um, I mean, no, I don't think the torture porn movies that I've seen, I don't think they glorify the serial killers because they're not
Okay.
focused on them. They're focused
Hmm.
on the people, the victims, and trying to get out.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah, they don't. If they were maybe making it from the perspective of the serial killer and
Yeah.
being like, oh, he's such a great guy, maybe that would be. But
Yeah. That's why I have a bit of a moral thing with stuff like the Ted Bundy film that came out, the ones about Dahmer or Gacy. I want to watch them because I'm into true crime,
yeah,
but I also feel like doing it from their point of view is kind of, when you do something from someone's point of view, it's because you want some form of like sympathy or empathy for that
yeah.
person,
Hmm.
and you want to understand them, whereas I feel that that does glorify serial killers almost.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're making a movie from their perspective, you're
Yeah. Whereas this one is from the perspective of the victims. Um, Although it does focus a lot on what Mick does. There's a shot of
yeah.
like a corpse that he's already done whatever to, and it is quite shocking. Um, and another thing that I kind of have with Wolf Creek is they kind of show Mick, the killer, as quite jovial and quite
Mhm.
jokey. And like, I know that that might have been the serial killer, whoever, they based it on Ivan Milat, that might have been the sick pleasure he derived from killing. It's
Yeah.
kind of weird to watch, like this kind of
Yeah.
jovial point of view of the serial killer. That kind of
Yeah.
creeps me out a lot.
Yeah. I'm looking at Wolf Creek's Wikipedia page right now, and
Yeah,
it says he was a deranged, psychopathic, xenophobic killer. So I think
yeah,
that psychopathy is what makes him jovial because like he's
yeah.
doing all these terrible things,
Hmm.
but he's happy about it. So
Yeah,
that kind of makes sense.
yeah,
Um, yeah. If he felt bad about it, he wouldn't be doing it.
yeah. And why do you think that Wolf Creek became such a success? Do you think it is people's morbid fascination with serial killers?
Yeah, and I think there's a huge market for torture
Hmm.
porn movies. So, and I'm looking, and this was released in the United States on Christmas Day, which is weird. I don't know why you
Yeah,
would ever release something on Christmas Day. I know Scream was released around Christmas in
yeah.
1996, but yeah, that I wonder if like any families went to go see it for like their Christmas movie or something. That's something that we do in America. At least my family,
Okay.
because my dad's Jewish, so we always
Okay.
go to the movies and then
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we have like the day after Christmas Day we call St. Stephen's Day, and that's when we'd go to the cinema.
Yeah. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. But yeah, I just like Wolf Creek is like it's nothing amazing, when it comes to like that genre. And I don't quite understand why it was such a big like I enjoyed it. I liked it. And to be honest, I haven't seen the sequels or the TV show. But I can't quite work out why it was such a big hit, whether because we're used to a lot of these films coming from America and whether it was just because it was like a different setting and it was set in a very Australian culture.
Yeah.
And I'm sure lots of people who haven't gone to Australia are quite curious. And I think maybe that might be it.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't have, at least in America, I don't know that we have much exposure to Australian horror. I don't even know if there is like a whole ton of Australian made horror films. So maybe the Americans were just like, oh my God, it's an Australian horror film.
Yeah.
Maybe there will be koalas.
Fingers
I don't know.
crossed.
And I think it's a way to like escape. You get to go to Australia and some people just like to see, not that there's anything wrong with this, but they just like to see what kind of kills that they'll come up with.
Yeah.
If it's a torture porn movie. So.
That's very true. Yeah. Do you think that this kind of thing would put you off visiting Australia?
No.
No?
No,
Okay.
because you would never find me in the outback by myself with a stranger. So I'm a city girl. I will be going to like Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne. I don't know if one of my friends wants to drive me out somewhere into the outback to where there's like a resort. I will go there or something, but like just hanging out in the outback is not for me.
Yeah, when I was living there, my older sister got me like a trip to, it was like a coach bus trip kind of to go into the outback. And I was just like, you know what? I'm good. I've seen Wolf Creek. I have seen Wolf Creek. I think I'm okay. I'm okay. I don't need to see bush and desert. I'm good.
All desert kind of looks the same to me. Like I said, I'm not outdoorsy. So if you're like, look at that beautiful landscape, I'd be like, that's cool. Send me a photo.
Yeah. I kind of feel like the tagline for Wolf Creek should be something like Crocodile Dundee's deranged brother, or we have such good memories of the film Crocodile Dundee, and then Wolf Creek comes along and royally fucks it up. So for general horror fans, do you think that Wolf Creek is essential viewing?
If you're trying to just be really well watched and you want to watch something in the Australian horror genre, then I think so. But I don't know if this is essential because it's torture porn, and I don't know if torture porn is essential. Maybe go see an earlier torture porn film and like it's not as intense as this sounds. I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to turn people off from watching it, but
if that's your bag, yeah, I think if you're a fan of that kind of serial killery, torture-y, porny kind of, then I mean it's definitely on the lighter side of the torture porn. I would say that like Hostel's a bit more. I don't know if you've ever seen a Hostel.
I've never seen Hostel. I stay in hostels when I travel, so I'm like
especially if you're backpacking through Europe as well. You're like, nah.
Exactly.
I definitely recommend it. Not if you're going to be going to Australia anytime soon. But so how do you feel about Australian horror now? Does it kind of encourage you to seek out more horror from Australia, or are you just kind of like,
well, the two Australian films that I've seen, like Mungo and the Babadook, they're both really good. So yes, I think the Aussies are onto something.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely recommend. There's another film called Relic that has come out very recently.
Yes. I've heard it's really heavy.
It is quite heavy, yeah. It'd be more on the supernatural. So if you like Babadook and Lake Mungo, you might like Relic. I did write down a few more, but you said you're not really into slashers. So
oh no, I don't mind slashers. I just don't want to see like excessive
Yeah.
dismembering of bodies.
Well, there's a film called The Loved Ones.
Oh,
Yeah.
that. Yes, I tried watching that one
Okay.
day and I was like, I can't do
Yeah.
this. I read like I was watching it and then I read the synopsis on Wikipedia and I was like,
Yeah.
I can't. No.
No.
And my friends were like, I don't think you're gonna like this.
Yeah. See, the thing with, I mean, we say slashers, Australian slashers, and they're so different from like American slashers.
Yeah.
I find American slashers are very stylized, very, you know, nice looking, if that's,
Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
They're not very realistic
Whereas
looking. So.
Australians, like, there's another film that I saw very recently, the Irish film industry cinema. They did like an online bloody horathon for Valentine's Day, and they put on this Australian film called Slaughterhouse Killer, and it actually made me feel physically sick.
Ooh, okay. I will
That's
avoid that.
Yeah, that's like that's hard to do for me, but I was
Yeah.
just like, oh Jesus, because like I said before, they have this real grainy, like grungy, realistic, like yeah, it's just gross.
All right. Put that on my never watch list.
Yeah, so I definitely recommend for you to kind of stick with the Australian
Yes.
supernatural. Um, so yeah, thank you so much for discussing Australia with me. And before we go, I'd like to ask you, what is your favorite horror film?
Well, thank you for having me on. This was so much fun. So my favorite horror films are The Ring, Scream, and
Okay.
Cloverfield. Some people
Oh
have said that
well, okay.
Cloverfield does not really count, but I think
Right.
it does because it's like Godzilla, and that's a horror
Yeah.
film. So
Yeah, I definitely say that, it's a subgenre of horror.
yeah, yeah.
What is it about The Ring that you love? Is it the American or the Japanese version?
It is the American version.
Okay.
A couple of months ago I watched the Japanese version
Yeah.
finally, and I just found it really boring. And
Okay.
also
Yeah.
it wasn't that scary, and
Yeah.
I just the acting was kind of bad. I don't know. The atmosphere in the American version is so
Mhm.
creepy and it's cloudy and dark in
Yeah.
Seattle.
Yeah.
I love it. I remember I saw it in theaters twice.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I just love it. I love the story that we find out,
Mhm.
and the cold open is just amazing, and it
Yeah.
never gets old.
Yeah.
So I love it a lot.
Yeah, I do like The Ring. Yeah, I'd always prefer, like, I've preferred the Japanese version, but I do like The Ring, the American version though.
Yeah.
And then when you put it against like The Grudge, I'd prefer the American version of The Ring to the American version of The Grudge. They kind of came out at
Yeah.
the same time, didn't they?
Mhm.
America
Yeah.
went through a thing of like remaking
Yes.
Japanese and Asian. And I definitely feel that The Ring, whereas The Grudge tried to take Japanese culture and make it American, The Ring, the American version, really like put it into American culture.
Yes.
So it was more
Exactly.
kind of relatable for
Mhm.
like us Westerners. So yeah, no, I totally get that. And what is it about Cloverfield that you like?
Well, it's set in New York City, and
Hmm.
I love found footage movies.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I don't know. I love the friends, and I
yeah,
love watching them try to get from Lower Manhattan to Midtown and
yeah,
try to help their friend that they're going after. And so I've seen all of those places, so I'm like,
yeah,
oh, I know that place.
yeah. I think it's great when like a film is set in a city, Like,
Yes,
I don't know if you've ever seen Wreck.
I have not. It's on my
Okay.
list.
So that's set in Barcelona, and I've gone to Barcelona so many times. No Barcelona at the back of my hand, and it's just so nice seeing a found footage film where
Yeah,
and it's just so. It almost makes it scarier because it's so familiar to you
yeah.
that
Mhm.
I think that kind of adds to the scariness.
Yes, but on the other hand, on the flip side, going back to my rewatch of Saw last night, we could
Yeah.
not figure out where it was set, and we were like, "What city is this?" Because every single place that they shot in was grosser and grungier than the last. And it wasn't just the saw traps; it was like the
Yeah.
detective's apartment and the police station. The outside of Carrie Elway's apartment building
Yeah.
was just like it looked, I like a construction site. We were like, "Where are these people?" And I don't think that it was set in any specific city. So
I just assumed it was LA. I always assume that LA is quite grungy. I think because I've been to New York and I've been to Chicago, so I know what they're like.
yeah.
Whereas LA, I just see is quite grungy.
Yeah. Yeah, we my friends and I just always assume it's Detroit. So
Okay. Oh, that's right. They always say kind of grungy things in Detroit, don't they? Poor
Yeah.
Detroit.
Yeah. Hope it's up and coming again. So
Okay.
hopefully, that's what I hear.
Great. Thank you so much. So that was my chat there with Alison from Who's There podcast about Australian horror. And in particular, we looked at two films, 2005's Wolf Creek, which is like a serial killer, kind of borderline torture porn film, kind of that era. And then we looked at 2008's supernatural found footage / documentary style horror film Lake Mungo, which just recently got a re-release on Blu-ray. So if you are looking for it, it is out there. So as always, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and don't forget to let us know about what you think are quintessentially perfect Australian horrors. Do you like Australian horror? Do you think we could have chosen some better films? Let us know on our social media. So that's at What a Scream Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. You can also get in touch with us over on Twitter, what_scream. And you can also find us on Letterboxd as well. So you can keep up with all the films that we have coming up in our discussions. Now, as always, I hope you are staying safe. You're enjoying the reopening of things like we are in Ireland, but don't forget to stay sensible, wear your masks, and stay horrific. Goodbye.